Okay, that might have been a little confusing to watch, but I wanted to show you how the Perfection Kills piece is based on what's called a 12-tone row. A lot of the parts are actually just playing those 12 notes in the same order. In some places I cheat, in some places I'm not actually playing the row, I'm just trying to play something compatible with it, like in the guitar solo or the melody in the slower section. So yeah, it's not all strict 12 tone, but a lot of the piece actually is that row. Backing up a bit, let's talk about the other cell pieces. The other cell pieces are actually based on this same row as well, but I built up to this theme slowly by adding notes to each theme that came after it until we had the complete final perfect cell theme. So let's go backwards, because actually I wrote the main idea for this last theme, even though it took me like 2 years to finish it. I actually had the idea for this row. Well, actually it goes back 6 years, but we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, so let's look at the other themes and how they relate to this complete row. So, gestation is a little bit trickier to demonstrate since it's only 3 notes, and to make the piece interesting, I had to use a lot more tricks. So those 3 notes are A, B, and B flat. Now, keep in mind that the B flat can also be called an A sharp, since you're either referring to it as a lowered B, you're taking this white note and lowering it down to the black note here, or you're calling it a raised A, which is you're taking this white note and raising it to the very same black note. So that would be an A sharp. Oh yeah, and you might recognize this sound that I'm using here. It's been used in lots of Z tracks. And once again, I'm using it here. So the first trick I did to make interest in these 3 notes was I spread out the first note in 4 different octaves. So you can see A, let's zoom in a little bit this way. We can see A, all in 4 different octaves. And then the last 2 notes in a 5th octave. So that sounds like, and we'll zoom way out so we can see all these notes. And then later what I did was take those notes and transpose them down to the next note down, which is G. Because in the musical alphabet, G is our last note, and that's where we restart to A. So G is right under the A. And we get G, A, G sharp, or A flat, depending on what you want to call that note. So here's what that sounds like. And then it kind of alternates with this guy. Just a little bit later in the piece. And then transposed. So by itself. And then we have this kind of droning that's going on. This stuff right here. That's actually the same 3 notes as well, played really rapidly. Now, it's hard to tell exactly what that is because of all the effects I have on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to this guy, and there's a step filter on there that's really hard to hear anything past that step filter. It really grabs your ears. So let's listen to it. So it might still be kind of hard to hear it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the effects, and now I've got a send effect on here. It's got some delay, which is like an echo. Turn that off. And I'm also going to open up the synth itself. And this R here is controlling how long the notes last after you let go of them. This is Reactor or instrument called Razor. It's pretty cool. And so yeah, I'm adding extra notes every once in a while. There's a transposed version. So that's that part. Let's go back and set it back to the way it was. So delay back on, step filter back on. And the instrument itself, we'll turn the release back about where it was. And yeah, that step filter, you can kind of hear. I'm just kind of turning it down and how much it affects the audio. Turning it back up. Just so you can kind of hear. Gradually affect the audio. Okay. And then one other thing I was going to show you. Yeah, here it is. This part. So here I'm again playing with octaves, but I'm playing with rhythm too. I'm playing it very slow at first, and each note goes up an octave, and then I'm playing it a little bit faster, and each note's going down an octave, and then I go twice as fast as that, and now I'm staying in the same octave. It's actually the first time I've done that. And then it starts like I shift an octave for the first one, and then stay in the same octave. And then here I've got a giant octave up leap after that, and it stays in the same octave. And then we go to the transposed version. It does the whole process over again. So that sounds like. It's just 3 notes. And then that's different 3 notes here. You can hear it with the track. So going back to the original Perfection Kills 12-tone row, I want to talk more about 12-tone music in general. This is actually a style of writing that was invented by Arnold Schoenberg. And his idea, I think, was that you wouldn't write in a single key or even have keys that you were passing through for different sections, like most traditional music does. Theorists have labeled this music as atonal, so it doesn't have a tone center. I actually just learned that he hated that term. That music that's atonal would be against nature itself, and that's not a good thing. So I guess he's not trying to completely destroy key, but he just doesn't want it to be in a constant key, I guess is what it is. So I used to think that Schoenberg rolled in his grave every time I used 12-tone music because I didn't use it the way he liked it. But maybe I was a little bit wrong about that. Anyway, so the idea behind 12-tone music is that you use every single note of the chromatic scale. Now that's all the notes within an octave. There's 12 notes within an octave. There's 7 white notes, 5 black notes. So those 7 plus 5 is 12. Or A through G plus all the notes in between. And if you give them all equal importance instead of just, the 7 notes in your key, you're forced to write music that's a lot more interesting. The idea is that you take each of those notes and you use all of them before repeating any. So, as you have already seen, I kind of cheat that a little bit. Like you could see, I use 4 A's before I got to the B. Now, I consider that to be a little bit bending the rules because you're technically still staying on the same note. It's like a continuation of that note before moving on to the next one. But I actually cheat worse than that at other places. But anyway, so yeah, that's the idea behind 12-tone music and where I got this idea. I've used it before. This is actually the third villain that I've used it for. Another that I used it for was Dr. Raichi's theme and a fan dub I worked on of Plan to Eradicate the Saiyans. I used this 12-tone idea for that character's theme in the opening of that movie.
Bring your demise!
And then there's another villain that I used it for, which I'm not going to tell you who it was. I'll let you try to figure that one out, but I'm sure you know that particular theme. Earlier I mentioned that the idea behind this theme was actually conceived 6 years ago. That was just simply a chord that I would come up with while playing around on the piano. I put it up as a video back then. It's actually still on my channel. It's called Spaciest Chord Ever. At the time, I didn't really think that people would totally get it because I don't think the piano has enough sustain to show the true gnarliness of this chord, because it's a 12-tone chord. It uses all notes of the chromatic scale, so it's kind of like, sitting on a piano, but you've spread the notes across the whole thing. I've just arranged it in a clever organization, I guess, to make it sound kind of cool as you play the notes. But here's that chord. So yeah, that's an old video. I'm still wearing my wedding ring. Yeah, so if you take those notes and you transpose them down a minor third, and then you kind of rearrange them a little bit, you get the Perfection Kills piece. The reason I transposed them down, I believe, was so that that bottom note, which is the second note of the final theme, is an A, which is the open note on the bottom string of my 7-string guitars and my 5-string bass. Usually it would be a B, but I use drop A tuning to get a slightly lower sound, and also you can do a single finger fret bar for power chords. And then also I rearranged the notes a little bit so that certain harmonies would be formed in the middle parts of the sequence. It would just make it easier to make pieces out of this sequence as opposed to just the cool chord that I had. Now I can start breaking it up into different ideas. It just made it a little bit more flexible. Incidentally, there's a pattern to the Spacies chord there, which I thought was kind of cool. Sorry if this gets a little advanced, but it's an augmented chord, which also the Perfection Kills one is also an augmented chord. What's different about the Spaciest one is that it's an augmented chord with a major 7th on the top, and then starting with the B there, which is the major 7th, we've got another augmented chord. So B, D sharp, G is a augmented chord, and now that one's got a major 7th on top, which is the B flat. Or you call it an A sharp, actually, if you're thinking of it that way. But then anyways, then you start yet another augmented chord from the B flat, and you got B flat, D, F sharp. That's B flat augmented. And it's got a major 7th on top. And then you got A, C sharp, F. And that's yet again another augmented chord. And here I stopped because I'd used all 12 notes of the scale, of the chromatic scale, and I figured that was far enough. You could actually keep going with that pattern farther and farther up. Okay, and the last part I want to talk about is a fun trick that you can do with tone rows. What you could do is you could take a sequence of notes like this tone right here, and you invert it. And what that means is that every time you go up with a note in the original, you go down that same amount in the new version, or and vice versa. So like if the original goes down, then you go up by the same amount, or same musical interval. I have tutorials on this stuff in other videos. Anyway, so taking our original row here, we've got F A. Now A is a major third up from the F, so we're going to go a major third down in our inverted version. So we're going to go down to a C sharp, and then from A to C sharp is another major third. So we're in our inverted version, we're going to go down another major third. So down from C sharp is A. So these are symmetrical. This is an augmented chord is called a symmetrical chord because it's all made of major thirds. So that's the reason it comes out to the same chord in this case. And then from the C sharp, it goes to a G sharp, which is a perfect fifth up. So now we're going to go a perfect fifth down. So A to D. And then we just keep on inverting like that, and we end up with this inverted row here. And then it turns out that you can start an inversion from any note of your row. And then once you've filled all that out, you've got this whole matrix of rows going across from left to right are all the transposed versions. It's just taking the same row, and like the second one there, P8, is transposed down to C sharp, or transposed down a major third. And the third one there is transposed up a major third. So it starts with an A. And then you've got all the inversions of it starting from the original notes of our row. So you can have our inverted version of the row transpose up a major third. So it's transposed up a major third and it is inverted. So that's what's going down. The one that's labeled I4 there. And then you could reverse them. So you could just take the same row that we have and start with the D and go G flat, B flat, E flat, and so that's called R0. That's the original row. And then you can also do both. You can take an inverted one and go backwards. It's called retrograde inversion. The 6 means that it's been transposed up 6 semitones. So in my piece Perfection Kills and in the piece Partials, I'm using some of these special versions of the theme. And then in partials, I also use a retrograde inversion for the second part of the theme. What that one is if you take the original partials theme, if you invert it, and then you transpose it down a half step and reverse it, that's what's used for the second section of partials. Oh, and then another piece that I used 12 tone on was actually my wedding music. Was a challenge to make something sounding pretty using 12 tone. Usually I use it for something, kind of scary sounding, or when I want something to sound kind of strange and bizarre or experimental musically. But yeah, so it was an extreme challenge to write a 12 tone flute duet that would be appropriate for a wedding ceremony. But anyway, that's on my website. I'll put a link to it. Well, that's it. I hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for listening. I just really wanted to share that with you guys because it's not the kind of thing that is apparent from listening. But anyway, so yeah, the 4 cell pieces are the same piece. Thanks. Bye.